this has been the great uniter. I always say that because we've been starved for that, something to unify us again. And freedom is unifying. It doesn't matter if you're gay or straight, if you're left or right, if you're vaxxed or unvaxxed. The one thing that unites us all and we can all gather under is the banner of freedom, and we certainly have.
Yeah, it's been so inspirational, and so many of us were inspired by what we saw in Canada, as much as the mainstream media tried to vilify and use words, of course, like insurrection to describe what was happening in Canada, when meanwhile there was like bouncy houses and them
right.
actively cleaning and everything. It was so inspiring, but at the same point, now we've seen just the overbearing totalitarianism, the authoritarianism, with Trudeau just cut with the name calling. And then we see the organizer of that, Tamara Litch, with shackles, and she was denied bail. We got Maureen Steele driving with the People's Convoy, the truckers' convoy, on their way to D.C. We were hoping to have her by Skype, but we're having trouble connecting with her because, she's on the road. So we will try and get her by phone. They're working on that right now. But in the meantime, I will talk about what I talked about with her over the phone and get some updates. So we have some people, if you search People's Convoy on Twitter, you can find some of the videos going on. Missouri People's Convoy drawing crowds to greet its progress across the country. If you guys have any of those videos that you can show while I'm talking about this, that'd be cool. Incredible People's Convoy rallies taking place all over America. Truckers for Freedom posted that. There's been, here's another one. So let's see if I can pull this article. I should have had this ready. So this is an article out of NBC News. They say Convoy picks up cars and anti-Ukraine talking points ahead of Washington arrival. Wow. And this whole article just goes all over the place. American offshoot of the Freedom Convoy that brought chaos. Always notice the words and the adjectives they use when they write these articles. That brought chaos to Canada's capital, is promising to stop traffic outside of Washington, D.C. on Saturday, but exact plans remain vague as the group hit a pit stop in Maryland. So this goes on to talk about how, the people in this convoy, they're demanding an end to the mask mandates, but they're getting rid of the mask mandates already anyway. So why are these crazy truck drivers in this convoy when they're, these mandates are being done away with anyway? Well, of course, they're mischaracterizing. When I was talking to Maureen Steele earlier, she was talking about how this isn't what the People's Convoy truck drive has been about. It hasn't been about ending the mandates. It's been about raising awareness, asking for accountability for the fact that so many people's lives were destroyed over the past couple years, and ending the emergency that Biden extended. So they say that they're getting rid of these masks. They say they're getting rid of the vaccine mandates, but they extend the emergency now. Why would they do that? Is it because they want to hang on to that emergency so they can just switch that light switch back on, get everybody up in masks again, get everybody mandated to take the jab again? I don't know, maybe after the election. What other reason are they extending this emergency for? So they're raising awareness for that. And then, of course, this article goes on to talk about how this trucker convoy is made up supposedly of QAnon people. And then they talk about here, the convoy has added some of the most extreme QAnon adherents, a group that had congregated in Dallas because they believed that John F. Kennedy Jr., who died in 1999, was still alive and would reveal himself on the site where his father, former President John F. Kennedy, was shot. That group joined the convoy as it drove through Texas. They don't have any evidence of this. They don't have any evidence that they're pointing to it, that same group that was waiting for John F. Kennedy Jr., where his father was shot, they hopped up there with the truck convoy. Okay. But they don't, of course, provide any evidence of that in this NBC article. So, they're just demonizing the effort, of course, and then they're saying that they're anti-Ukrainian. Oh my God. It says, as its COVID mission has become less clear, the group's channels have turned to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, where conspiracy-minded thinking has flourished. Well, some group members have admonished Russian President Vladimir Putin for the invasion. QAnon and anti-vaccine contingents within the groups have seized on a false conspiracy theory that the war is covered for a military option backed by former president. It's just, I mean, it's a hit piece. It's a hit piece on the convoy with very little to no evidence backing it up. And then sure enough, someone had posted, to clarify on Twitter, there has been no QAnon involvement in the People's Convoy. NBC News should retract this story or actually provide proof for their baseless allegations. And that's just what it is, just baseless allegations, just a hit piece, just trying to make the truckers look like a bunch of crazy folk with no real evidence to back it up. So somebody on Twitter was trying to set the record straight. But do you think NBC News will make that correction or fix anything? Absolutely not. They absolutely will not. So we have Maureen is it by phone? Okay, Maureen is on the phone. She is on the road, so we couldn't get her on Skype. But Maureen, where are you at there?
Hi, Christy Lee. I am in Maryland right now. I was on the highway, and I had no service at all where I was, and I'm on a little side street right now and was able to jump on the phone to call in.
We so appreciate you calling in. I mean, it's not as great as seeing your pretty face, but I was just talking about this NBC article, which I'm calling a hit piece, that's talking about Convoy picks up cars and anti-Ukraine talking points. They talk about how apparently all those people that went and looked for JFK Jr. On a certain date where his father was shot, they just joined your trucker convoy. Were you aware of that?
No, but they sound like a fun bunch.
Well, NBC News, with no evidence or, sources, because sources in journalism is a lost art, they said that group is with you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have no idea. We've had a lot of groups join us, but I haven't heard about that group. And so, my comment to that is, so what if they did? This is the People's Convoy, and it takes all sorts, and just because some people have some strange ideas or what might be strange to some people, we're all Americans and we're all free. And that is what this is about. Freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom to believe what you want. That's the beauty of America. So if someone wants to believe that, have at it. I mean, this is just absurd. That piece, I haven't read that yet, Christy. So it's interesting. But, that's what freedom's all about, right? It takes all kinds.
Well, the article certainly, there's no continuity to it. It's just like a bunch of jarbled, rumors essentially thrown into what's supposed to be a news piece. I mean, to go anywhere from talking about that apparently QAnon supporters are up in the trucker convoy to apparently all of you are just hitting the road heading to D.C. just talking about how great Putin is, and you're all anti-Ukraine apparently too. I mean, this is insane.
Actually, they're flying the Ukrainian flag. There's a Ukrainian flag flying on a lot of the trucks as they struggle so hard right now fighting for their freedom. What an inspiration they are. So, it's just false. It is a hit piece. Clearly, it's not fair. I mean,
that is right in the headline. Convoy picks up cars and anti-Ukraine talking points. Meanwhile, you say they're waving Ukraine flags.
Yeah, they are. In fact, Brian Brazzi, one of the lead truckers, actually spoke last night, and we said a prayer. Actually, there was a prayer said for the Ukraine and all the people that are struggling over there, and, God bless them all. And, we could be next. I mean, that's what we're fighting for is our freedom. What befalls them and what's befallen Canada could certainly befall us. And so, God help us all. We need to dial this back. We need to get our freedoms back. And we need to pull together. It's the 11th hour, but people are pulling together, and I see it every day out here on the road. Just tens of thousands of people coming out now when we roll into places and speak. It's so exciting to see, and American patriotism is alive and well. And I know we've all thought it was dead for the last few years, and it isn't. And what else isn't is the American heart. American generosity is just second to none, and everywhere we have gone, we have been fed unbelievably well. No one will let us give a penny, and it's just all the truckers, anyone there for the truckers. There's food for everyone for miles, and it's just incredible. And the spirit of love and affection for country and fellow man is so heartwarming. I wish I could bottle it all and share it with everyone. I always try to to share it when I'm up on stage talking, because it's just an
Maureen,
amazing thing.
we got to get to break, but I would like you to stay on for one more segment. Please stay on the phone. We want to clear up some things about bad actors who are trying to infiltrate this movement. This is a movement, a spirit, the spirit of America. We want to support the truckers. Welcome back to the War Room. We're talking about the truckers out there on the road making their way to Washington, D.C. Want to read this as their statement. This is from the People's Convoy. We demand the declaration of national emergency concerning the COVID-19 pandemic be lifted immediately and our cherished Constitution reign supreme. We are the people of the United States of America, and we stand together under the banner of freedom. Freedom is the one thing that unites all of us. Liberty flows through all of our veins. That's beautifully written. Maureen Steele is with me on the phone with the truckers right now. Maureen Steele of the People's Convoy. Maureen, I wanted to talk to you about this delineation of the People's Convoy. It's important to make sure that we're pointing out that it is the People's Convoy, because there are smaller convoys and some of them are welcome, but there's other convoys that haven't necessarily honored what you're trying to do.
Right, and I thank you for bringing that up, Christy, because it's something that is really important to get on record and get out there. The People's Convoy is law-abiding, peaceful, messaging campaign, and there are some bad actors that we fear have infiltrated, and we've heard have infiltrated. There are a number of smaller convoys now coming in. There was the Freedom Convoy that defunct. There's been another of others that have defunct. And ours is going, and there's smaller ones that are joining in. But when people join in like that, you don't know who they are. And a lot of them are saying they're the People's Convoy, and they're not. We don't know their names. We don't know who they are. We haven't worked with them. So we do have grave concerns of people going into D.C. proper. That is not the People's Convoy. If anyone tries to go into D.C. proper, we are not advocating that. We are not promoting that. In fact, we're promoting just the opposite, to stay far away from D.C. proper. I just put a call into the Maryland police today, and I haven't received a call back yet, to see if they wanted an assist on actually blocking the roads with some of our trucks to make sure that no one goes in to D.C. proper. And I haven't heard back yet, but that's certainly something we're offering. Again, just to show that we are not advocating for that in any way, shape, or form. So if someone goes rogue and cars go in, or there's plants, oppositional plants that do something, it's just really important that we get our messaging out that is not us and that is not advocated for. So, yeah, you just never know.
You mentioned a Kyle with the Freedom Convoy, and apparently some of them had gone into the D.C. proper already. They had pulled a permit, and of course, no one showed up, and so they were saying this whole truckers convoy was a big joke and wasn't happening. Meanwhile, we see reportedly 10,000 vehicles stretching over 70 miles earlier this week. So it is happening, but you guys are not and never have planned on going into D.C. proper. And as you explained, the People's Convoy has its own infrastructure to the point that you said there's 50 people who have just completely dedicated their time and attention to this.
Yeah, including some of the truckers. It's become a full-time job for a lot of us. Between logistics and tactics and supplies and route planning and all of that, it's a heavy lift, and it took a lot of people, to get this done, and it's still taking a lot of people. I mean, when you think of getting 10,000 people across the country together safely with fuel and food and all of that, it's a tremendous undertaking. And, we were really fortunate to garner some of the best and brightest who jumped on board to help us, right out of the gate. And, it has just been a fantastic collaboration and group effort of just, good Americans wanting to save their country and wanting their freedom back. And it's resonated with the hearts of American people. This has been the great uniter. I always say that because we've been starved for that, something to unify us again. And freedom is unifying. It doesn't matter if you're gay or straight, if you're left or right, if you're vaxxed or unvaxxed. The one thing that unites us all and we can all gather under is the banner of freedom, and we certainly have.
Yeah, it's been so inspirational, and so many of us were inspired by what we saw in Canada, as much as the mainstream media tried to vilify and use words, of course, like insurrection, to describe what was happening in Canada, when meanwhile there was like bouncy houses and them actively cleaning and everything. It was so inspiring, but at the same point, now we've seen just the overbearing totalitarianism, the authoritarianism, with Trudeau just cut with the name calling. And then we see the organizer of that, Tamara Lich, with shackles, and she was denied bail. So, I mean, the obvious question is here to see that there's no due process, to see that there's still political prisoners from January 6th that were just basically taking a tour of the Capitol, did nothing violent, but are still behind bars. One of them even having committed suicide because of just the torment these demons have put him through. I gotta think that you've had thoughts about, like, well, what if we're framed? What if they come and arrest me?
Oh, yeah, we have those thoughts. I certainly do. But do you not act? Do you not do what's right just because, you might be treated unfairly or because you're scared? I guess courage is acting, in spite of fear. And courage is contagious, as is cowardice. And we've all lived in fear for quite a long time now. For a couple of years, it's been drilled into us to be fearful of everything. And now it's time, so that was contagious, and courage is too. And now it's time for every American to rise up, to stand up, to join hands. And it's the 11th hour, but we are awake, and we need to do what's right, regardless of whether we're a little scared of what the government might do. And this is exactly why we have to do it. I mean, the fact that as Americans we have to fear that kind of totalitarian authoritarianism, it's absurd. It's beyond absurd, and it's all the more reason for us to stand up right now and do the right thing.
I mean, you've got to be struck by just the pure hypocrisy of these leaders. President Joe Biden in his State of the Union, and then hearing Justin Trudeau talk about the authoritarianism and dictatorship of Russia, and no self-awareness that what they've tried to do, all of us, to control all of us. I mean, I'm sure that hasn't been lost on the group.
No, it hasn't. And it's called spin. We call it spin. But you know what it is? It's lies. And the American people know it's lies. And Americans are done with lies. And they're done with the political correct police. They're done with cancel culture. They're done with all of it. I mean, out here, being at the forefront of this movement, and speaking to people all over the country now, the sentiment rings true for so many, rich, poor, young, old. People have had it with all of that. We want our country back. We want our American way of life back, the way we all knew and loved it from like 7 years ago. Unfortunately, it's been a long time, that we've been suffering through all this nonsense with like political correctness and the cancel culture, and and just told we're inherently racist and we're horrible people. And you know what? We're not. I see every day how beautiful the American people are. There are tons and millions of good people in this country, and I've met them every day on this journey. And we're so blessed to live here, and we can't let our country go.
The other way that they're pushing back is the gaslighting of trying to define what the People's Convoy is, what the truckers are out there doing, and the way they're trying to define it is, well, this is ridiculous. They're standing up against the masks and the vaccine mandates, which we've already scaled back on and reverted. And so what is the point? What do you have to say to that?
Well, I have to say, go read the Trucker Declaration that you started reading. We've never been about lifting mandates. That was never in our declaration. That was the Canadian, battle cry, but it's not ours. Ours is lift the emergency orders and, let our Constitution reign supreme. And we want accountability. That is a major thing that we're after. What we have gone through over the last 2.5 years should never happen again in the future. We need congressional hearings, bipartisan congressional hearings. We need investigations on the local, state, and federal level as to what has gone sideways and, wrong with the handling of this COVID-19 pandemic. When the cure is worse than the disease, you've got a real problem. And we haven't even been able to quantify, all the damage that the so-called cure has caused, with, children losing out on education and the long-term effects of that, child abuse that's gone undetected, suicide rates through the roof, divorce rates through the roof. I mean, to quantify all the damage, we have to try, because this can never happen again in the future of our country or the future of the world. It's an atrocity, and the American people deserve an explanation, and so don't the people of the world.
How do we support you as we head toward break? How do we support you, Maureen?
Sure, www.thepeoplesconvoy.org, and we need money right now. We need money to keep these kings of the road rolling. It costs about $1,200 to fill each truck each time we have to fill up. So,
wow.
It's expensive. Fuel is expensive, and so we need funding. So that's the ask, and come out and join us if you can.